maybe leaving technology out of it, like what's changed the most as you've gone through the cycles in the industry?
I mean, I don't ever walk into a new relationship with a GC going, it's adversarial. I want to be a good partner with them.
So much of what I feel we do as builders now is emails. And some of that stuff is extremely, extremely, extremely important. But has technology allowed for a speed up of that, or is it just more and more distractions?
Well, hey, Steve, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate you taking a little time this morning.
Yeah, no worries. This will be fun.
Yeah, we're looking forward to this. So, in some of the prep conversations, we kind of talked a little bit about your background, and obviously we're friends, and I know a bit about your history. But in kind of learning more about your professional career, it's pretty fascinating to see. You kind of started from the beginning on the retail side. You were bagging groceries as a 16-year-old. You were kind
Yep.
of ambitious and hungry, and so you kind of put yourself in kind of an apprenticeship position on the electrical side, learned HVAC and refrigeration, and then you started running work, and that was at U Crops, right?
Yes. Hmm.
And then if you look back at maybe where you're at now, kind of running facilities and engineering for Fresh Market, a large national grocer, um, did you see that as like a destination? Like you wanted to get into the facilities engineering side, or how intentional do you think that kind of winding aspect of your career ended up being?
Well, life has a way of twisting and turning, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so, I mean, when I was younger, I planned on just going into the trades. That's what I was going to do. And I thought about electrical engineering and things like that eventually. But Mary and I got married very young, and I needed to work. I needed to make money. Okay.
Necessity.
Yes.
Right.
So we, I've just looked for opportunities. Is really what it amounted to. How could I move quicker and make more money? Because I'm a young family. I got mouths to feed. I got bills to pay. Going back to school, full time was not in the
Not
cards.
an
I
option.
mean, so even you know, just if I could find something that was making me a buck or two more an hour and it was a good stable job, I hit the yes button,
Go.
right? Right. But always in the back of my mind, I mean, when I'm sitting there, working nighttime op stocking shelves, I had, you know, still in the back of my mind, I wanted to do something with my hands, right? I
Yep.
wanted to be in the trades. I wanted to do something with the training that I'd received, and eventually the Lord blessed, and I was able to go into that, right?
Mm.
Very
And
good.
it was kind of a really cool opportunity when you always think about things like having a SIDS baby of being, oh, that, this is hard, right? God has a way of working that out. And that is actually what got me off the night crew into daytime operations, which led on to me, moving over to the maintenance team.
Mm.
If that hadn't happened,
They're 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 like, who's this Steve guy? He's pretty good.
yeah. And, there was lots, the U crops were really good about trying to promote people, to be honest with
From
you.
within.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and not just that, look for their talents and opportunities for them to utilize those talents.
Sure.
Mm.
That's great.
And
Good
and U
leadership.
Crops was a local grocer, kind of the Mid Atlantic region, right?
Yeah, the regional chain, like I told you the other day, huge loyalty following.
Yeah.
They're I mean, their part of their mission statement was treating others like you would want to be personally treated, right?
Mind
That's
blown.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's not just customers, that's vendors, that's your internal
Yeah.
teams, all
Employees.
of that.
Yeah.
And they were a good Christian family. They were closed on Sundays, which is highly unusual for a grocery store.
That's that's
Yeah.
that's that's a roll of the dice for a grocery store.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they didn't sell beer or wine.
Hmm.
You know, they had a core set of Christian values and they stuck by them.
Hmm.
And people appreciated that, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
But
cool.
I'll tell you a quick customer service story. I was young and working on the front end, and the store manager, we had to wear a vest and a tie back then, right? We're bagging groceries and taking groceries out to the cars. He told me to take off my vest and my tie, go across the highway there to a Safeway and buy these three items and come back fast as I could go. You know, I'm a kid. That that was a cool opportunity. So I go over there, buy the items, and give him the receipt, give him the three items, and I watched him. He took those three items, walked up to this lady, and said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, we're out of stock on these items." And he called her by name. He knew her, and said, "These are on us, so you don't have to go somewhere else to get them."
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, you don't have too many customer experiences like that these days.
No, it was routine back then. You know, people would pay by check. People didn't use credit
Yeah,
cards back
yeah,
then.
Yeah, right.
yeah.
How many times have you gone up to pay for something and oh man, I'm out of checks, right? And people back then bought a week's worth of grocery at a time, so they were pretty significant orders.
Well, Lars is Gen X, so he still has that problem.
Ah.
It's not that funny, Steve. Don't laugh. Don't laugh. It's not that funny.
And
I don't think. Keep going.
they would automatically say, "Hey, don't worry about it. Just pay me the next time you come by."
Yeah,
Hmm.
right.
And they take the
And how
groceries
and
home.
how many stores? How many locations? And these aren't like small stores. This isn't a mom and pop little like
Yeah,
what do
they
you call it,
were.
like general store. This is a chain, a regional chain.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
33 stores, I think, at the peak.
Hmm.
And they were, the last ones we built were 70,000 square feet, so they weren't small stores.
No,
Hmm.
I
So keep going, Lars.
I was just gonna say, generally speaking, I think we as a country culture have gotten away from that sort of local relationship component,
Yeah.
and there's also like this human component of some stuff
Yeah.
and of what you just described, meaning like, oh, I've been there too, man, it's okay, right?
Hmm.
And you know, I highly desire those sorts of relationships, not just for me to be the person that can say, hey, I forgot my checkbook, but also be the person to say, hey, it's okay, no problem, just give
Yeah.
me when you can, or I'll see you next week, don't worry about it. And when that when those little moments occur, it's like, I'm coming back here, I'm coming
Oh,
right here, these are my people.
well, it's not just that. Think of it from a business standpoint. What did 3 cans of whatever, peas or beans, whatever, what did that cost?
it,
Right?
de minimis, it does.
Yeah. But if you stop and look, if I can create an environment where I have customer loyalty,
Yes,
take a
Yeah.
family of four, right? Or
yes,
even just a husband and wife that starts off and they shop with you, and then they become a family of four, and they shop with you over their lifetime. How much money do they spend over a lifetime?
a
That
lot
can of
more
peas
than
means
that can of tuna or
all of
garbanzo beans, Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
And they did those analysis,
yeah. What?
and
And then it sounds like they empowered the team. They
yes.
empowered the team to create those relationships
Yeah.
Well,
to allow for that. They
I'll
fostered
explain.
it.
I'll explain one other thing to you. Um, when you talk to people back then about U crops, they didn't call them U crops. They would use the store manager's name. I go to Richard's store.
Oh,
When I go to John's store,
yeah.
that's the empowerment that they gave their store managers, right?
Wow.
Their name's on the label, and obviously they ran the company, but those store managers and assistant store managers, and one thing about them, because they had very controlled, slower growth. They didn't try to grow to 200 stores in 10 years, right?
Yeah.
They controlled the culture of the business,
Right.
and they grew slow. So somebody was an assistant manager for years
Before they, yeah. Getting
before they
groomed,
became.
getting trained. Yeah.
Yes.
In the military, we referred that to as like decentralized command.
Yeah.
And empower that frontline leader who's been through the ranks, who's been trained, culture, processes, just all the how tos, right? You've seen what works, what doesn't work,
Yeah.
right? And then say, okay, here are the keys.
Yeah.
Go.
And
Run
they
those
were
keys.
they were innovators.
Yeah.
They were way ahead of the industry in lots of things. Like
Yeah.
they started the value customer card.
Like the
And
repeat customer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing was they knew what the value proposition was for them. If I can have a customer that stays with me for a long time, I can offer more and more things to them, right, to keep them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that becomes, central to how you approach your business.
And that
So
bleeds
you
into so
got
many
this.
other businesses. And that's
Yep.
probably
Yeah.
where Steve's going to go.
Well, so you've got this kind of initial focus of like essentially grinding, skill acquisition, and then actually, a quick aside, Steve is one of the most capable people I know. Like if you walk into his garage, there's like welding equipment, there's like a lumber pile, there's like
Is he a
multiple
blacksmith too? He's like shoeing horses too.
probably.
He's like, but I can, but I can't.
But like it's interesting to see like that initial focus, what that yields over, a career. And I think, not to age you too much, Steve, but like you've had a few decades in the industry because after, you go through these cycles at Ucrops, is it Ucrops is then acquired by Fresh Market or is that not a linear
No,
path?
the Ucrop family sold the retail business.
Okay.
Okay. We'd gone from Joe Ucrop, the founder, to James Ucrop, the eldest son, ran the business for a while. Then Bobby Ucrop, the next son, ran the business. So they were next generations down from there, and they made the decision to sell the business, but they kept the manufacturing business.
Okay.
So that's still running today. They have a
I
central
had some
bakery.
Ucrops potato salad the other day. It was delicious.
Yeah. The Central Bakery is a pretty large facility. I actually helped build that one. It's an industrial facility. And we had a commissary for the other foods, like the potato salads and all of that, in a different location. And they kept that side of the business. Not just that, they had their own uniform business. So they kept that. So they actually sell uniforms to lots of different companies. And they sell their product to various different grocery stores now. They do have one retail outlet off of Three Chop. I think it's Three Chop in Patterson. Because people kept, once they sold the business, people kept asking, hey, how can I get some of this product that I've bought for years, right? Yeah. And so they saw an opportunity. So they built a little retail store where you can go in and buy stuff. You could still get their breakfast pizza. A lot of people don't even know what that is. But it's not a regular pizza. It's got eggs and bacon and sausage and all that stuff on it. So
Now we're talking.
yeah.
I've tried that. I need to. So you go from Ucrops. There's a couple different cycles. You're building cabinets, right? You've got a business yourself. You end up at Fresh Market, large national grocer, 174 stores nationwide, running kind of facilities and engineering. I think the question is, you've seen a bit of different angles of the industry. Maybe leaving technology out of it. Like, what's changed the most as you've gone through the cycles in the industry?
Well, going from a privately held company to a public company was a little eye-opening, right?
Yeah.
And seeing how a publicly traded company operates, the governance rules, all of those type of things was a new experience for me.
Compliance.
Yeah. And that was really helpful. I got a lot more education in, while we did net present value and things like that, it was much more important when you're starting to look at capital projects, all that type stuff with a publicly traded company, right? So, you've got larger amounts of cash to work with because you're publicly traded. And as you can do more projects, you have more funding to do other things. But you need to be careful. You need to make sure that you're getting a return on your investment, right?
Yeah.
So that was a really good education. I had a couple of good bosses that really helped me work my way through. I knew how to do the things, but the financial side of it was different.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a really good education the first couple of years that I was there. It all made sense, right? You know.
Did you know going into that there was gaps, say, around the financial piece? Like, did you expect to learn that, or did you, or all of a sudden see, like, I don't know this, I need to figure this out?
No, I mean I had exposure to doing project budgets, ROIs, all of that type stuff, at U Crops, but the governance side of it and having more funds to work with and a lot more projects to do, you start looking at things a little bit differently. Like,
When you say governance, just for the listeners, and I'll say maybe for me, just to frame it, what exactly are you talking about when you say governance?
all right, so when you're publicly traded,
Yeah.
your job is really not running the company as much. It's more for maximizing shareholder wealth,
Shareholder return. That's right. Yeah.
right? So now you're looking at if I've got 20 projects to do over the year, which we had lots more than that, but I'll use that as an example. Which ones are going to generate the best ROI? You want those done first so you get the most benefit of that during that fiscal year.
Yeah.
And then you have to certify. You have to make sure you're doing everything above board. So you certify and say, hey, I followed all of these rules,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I guess they're the same rules for most public companies, but we had a laundry list of rules that we had to follow, and you had to certify and say yes, and if you don't, you can get in a lot of trouble. So,
Yeah.
but
So maybe looking at like present day, in terms of material costs, we've got material costs are kind of elevated since kind of post COVID. That really hasn't changed. We've got the kind of the labor squeeze around kind of the availability of skilled tradespeople. From the owner side, what's it like building or renovating one of your stores in kind of 2026?
yeah, that's a great question. I'll go back a few years to pre-COVID, right? Pre-COVID, there was prices were a lot different. Now you always had, supply chain issues. One year it was plywood, right? You couldn't get plywood. So you get those things are elevated, or steel was a problem at one time. Those things were elevated, but you didn't see it across the entire spectrum,
Yeah.
right? When COVID hit, and a lot of construction stopped, a lot of there's this for businesses that are growing. There's all this pin up work that you really want to get going, but you can't,
Yeah.
right? And then finally we get out of COVID, and there's a lot of work. There's always, there's all kinds of things going on in the supply side of the industry. But prices just went through the roof. I mean, we're talking like 30%, sometimes even higher.
Yeah.
So you start looking at that from a business standpoint, where I was costing me X to build a store. Now it's 30% higher than that. And your rents have gone up, right? And so you're going, okay, I'm trying to build this store that I used to build, or a little bit, more enhanced concept, right? And you want to offer more because competition, you need to offer more to the customer. You're trying to attract new customers.
Yeah.
And you're looking at it going, okay, my cost of construction is up, my cost of equipment is up, my cost of rent is up, the cost of money is up.
Yeah.
And you start going, okay, where I could get a 20-25% return on investment, I'm not getting that anymore. I can't pass all of those costs on to the consumer. So you have to start thinking about, what do I do? If I want to grow and I need my business to grow, how am I going to do this? And so you start looking at, okay, how can I cut costs for this? And there's all these internal struggles, right? Because it's not just your internal costs, your expenses are higher also, right? Your labor costs, because you're paying people more, right? Um, the cost of goods, the stuff that you're selling costs more. So
Mm.
you start looking at T gig on your products, right? And going in cost of those things, going, okay, and then so you're weighing all of this and say, what is my price to market? What's my value proposition to the market? And how are all these things affected? And you're kind of going, I don't know if we really should be investing all of this money into new
Yeah.
stores.
Right. And then I guess you mentioned some of the kind of direct costs. When you're interacting with maybe a general contractor for a new build, are you seeing an inflation in their fee as well, or
Oh yeah,
or for,
everything went up. It wasn't
yeah,
just, I mean, your direct trade cost, all of those went up, right?
yeah,
I mean, I saw in one particular industry, like the refrigeration industry, those costs more than doubled.
They doubled. Electrical doubled.
Yeah. Well, that one actually more than doubled
hmm,
for the same product.
It, you know, short. I can't remember if I shared this, Stephen, with someone else, but Steve, I was building a job up in Oregon. Okay, and you remember when he couldn't get plywood or lumber doubled, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so here I am building this clinic up in Oregon, and I'm just fascinated because I didn't grow up around the lumber industry, even though my family had a sawmill up in Pennsylvania. But I'm just seeing piles of timber, just the raw, just logs, and then the train stations are right there, and all it's all covered, and just like I'm like, this is exciting stuff, right? This is real, it smells good, all sorts of interesting stuff. So when we start that job, lumber's what, $2. By the time we end it, it's $4. But the thing that blew my mind, Steve, piles are still the same. Nothing changed. It's not like that wood disappeared. It was all still there.
Well, I think a little of this is what will the market bear?
Well, I agree with that, and hot topic, hot potato. I'm pretty sure that there's probably some meetings at certain diners with certain groups of individuals that say, like, yeah, it's time to raise them. The market will bear it. They
this
can
is a
handle it.
conspiracy podcast. I'm down.
Uh oh, here we
We've
go.
always
Tin
been on the
hat,
edge.
tin
We've
hats.
always,
Put them
we've
on.
always been on the edge of it, Lars. Let's just embrace
Oh, let's just go there. Let's just go there. We know it.
it. But yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Like, I think ultimately incentives drive behavior, right? And the incentives were
Yeah.
there for that kind of result.
But
So
once
yeah,
it goes up, it doesn't come back down.
No, it never goes all the way back down. You'll see some ebbs and flows.
But it ain't going back down.
No, it's not going all the way back to where it was. For that to happen, you'd have to stop construction.
Right. And
so
so so we were building. We continued to build a number of projects during COVID, right? And
Mhm.
what we saw was this: hey, we're essential, right? Builders are essential, but then they shut down manufacturing. So all we did was we chewed up our own supply.
Yep.
We just chewed it up,
Oh,
and
that
then
happened in like, did you try to get switch gears back right
oh,
after that?
it went from I don't know 14 weeks to 24 months, and we're like, what? You
Yeah,
know?
I was pre-buying equipment
And you're
infrastructure.
designing around the pre-buy, and you hope
Yeah,
you made the right decision.
I actually sent a guy to Mexico to get some switch gear.
Yeah. Yeah. And
this
then what
the
was real
president's gonna
interesting, some
trigger
of
some
those places popped
PTSD.
up that was like assembling components from like other parts, and
Yeah.
it got weird. And I think we learned some valuable lessons from a supply chain and manufacturing here in this country during that period, which is good.
Yeah.
So maybe it'd be interesting to get your perspective, Steve, on like during that time. Going back to even kind of the idea of customer service and companies that understand the value of that customer interaction. Were there trades, GCs that were separating themselves during this time, in your opinion, that helped to kind of solidify a relationship?
No.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the question is, what would you have liked to have seen?
Oh
A
yeah. It's been
partner.
a Yeah.
And what does that mean? What does that mean?
Somebody who's not looking to make all their profit that year off of one job,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? You know, hey, I can lower my fees. I know everything's up. I can lower my fees a little bit, still make some money, right? Not as much as I normally would, but I'd like for you to do 3 or 4 jobs with me.
It's funny. The moment you said that, it's sort of like, where did you come from? Where did we start this conversation? U Crops, right? Run
Yeah.
across the street. Go
Yep.
get the go get the 3 things from Safeway. We're gonna buy them for Rebecca, Teresa, or Miss Smith.
Yep.
I hear you. My take on that as a builder is you're only as good as your last job, and
This
there are
this is true. That separates the men from the boys. Okay.
yeah, there's so many things that can go wrong, and so often it's like you're holding on, right? You're holding on so tight. I would like nothing more than to have a very transparent and long-standing relationship with a client who understands the risks of construction, the risks of building, and can weather the storms together because they're looking at a 20-year horizon together, right? Those are relationships that are extremely powerful. And in all honesty, I believe those are the relationships that can accomplish great things.
Yeah.
Great things.
You've heard me say this before. I'm skeptical of AI that doesn't make the person better, not the company, not the process, the person. That's why Trunk Tools keeps coming up in my conversations. They're building AI that's human-centric, designed to strip away the busy work and let experienced builders like you do what they're actually good at. And here's the thing that gets me. The average worker takes about 5.5 hours a week just looking for project data. That's a full day every week lost to digging through files and folders. So Trunk Tools is tackling that head on. Check the link in the description to learn more.
Lars, did you ever read Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara?
No. Is that something I need to read?
You definitely need to read it, and anyone
Okay.
listening needs to read it. I at one point made the comment that if I was just flush with capital, I'd start a business that was kind of a cross between Ethan Mollick's book Co-Intelligence and Unreasonable Hospitality, and kind of create the next gen trade partner. But the whole idea is this concept of, like, Will Guidara is a restaurateur. Like, he starts this restaurant in New York, or he takes over this restaurant in New York City, and he kind of goes through how to create these experiences for his customers, and
Oh
he
my
creates
gosh.
these different tiers, and there's like the one to many, the many to one, and I'm absolutely butchering the book, but the tie into this conversation is in an industry that is so tactically focused and so looking at surviving. It's hard to at times think about and kind of zoom out. What's the customer experience that I'm
What's the
creating?
yeah? What's the
Right, both
customer
up and
experience?
down, right, to the owner, but also down to your vendors.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I
Love it.
love I love that we started with the UCrop story, because I think it is a perfect tie-in to what I think the industry needs to embrace, and potentially as AI and technology comes into it, it opens capacity to do that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, one of the things, Steve, that I've been passionate about is so much of what I feel we do as builders now is emails, paperwork, and it's stuff that distracts from the personal conversation, right? The human to human, because it's total chaos and we're chasing around and we need all this other stuff. And some of that stuff is extremely, extremely, extremely important. But has technology allowed for a speed up of that, or is it just more and more distractions? And I've struggled because, Stephen, what I just described is, or sorry, what I heard you just say is like this you said unreasonable hospitality, right?
Mhm.
And I believe that this chaos prevents the building of those just unbelievably strong bonds around being in the crucible moments
I
together.
would disagree with that.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah. All right. So if you think, what I've seen is people have gotten away from standard construction practices, construction management practices.
So what do you mean by that?
All right. used to be when I first was starting to build stores and all this, you would do OAC meetings, right? And you would start off and you would run through your submittal log, you would run through your RFI log,
Yeah.
your change order log,
Yeah. You
your
mean basic
document,
stuff, basic CM stuff.
right? You're documenting all of this. You're doing a 3-week look ahead of your schedule,
Yeah.
but you've got your Gantt chart up on the wall. And back then we didn't use as many computers, but there would be a pin and a string,
String, hanging.
right?
A washer.
And you-
Yeah.
right? And you're going all the way through the
Slide it
Gantt
along.
chart,
Yeah.
and you're driving the schedule for the job.
Yeah.
Because from an owner's perspective, when you look at things like this, we think of things called days of revenue, right? If I can open this job up 3 weeks earlier, how much more revenue do I make?
Correct.
If this job runs me a month longer, how much revenue do I lose?
Yep.
Okay. I don't see any of that hardly going on anymore. And we've given them a lot more.
Why?
tools.
Why is that? Why is that?
I think it's because it's work.
What do you mean by that?
It's paperwork. It's not the fun work,
Yeah.
right? Or it's just a lack of due diligence on people's parts, right?
I
It's
believe
it's following the process. You know, I can tell you when I would do just a simple pay app, right? I would go on the site. I would open up Connex boxes. People were wanting to bill me for materials, all this type of stuff, and I would walk. How many times? When's the last time you saw an owner's rep do that?
because they get 250 emails a day.
Not
They're,
really.
they're stuck
I'm
behind,
gonna be-
I
I'm gonna-
believe
I'm
they're
gonna be
stuck
frank with
behind
you.
their computer, or they're in 15 Zoom meetings during the day. You know,
Well, there's tools out there to make us better and faster.
yeah,
Okay, the link is a great one.
Yeah.
Reconstruct is another one, right? Where I don't even have to pay my consultants to go out and look at certain things. I can have them go look at the video, or not the video, but the 3D image online and say,
Yes.
hey, that's not right. This is right, or answering an RFI. Here's my problem.
yes,
Right? I can answer the RFI without having to take a slide. I can move things faster.
I think part of this, though, I think it's an interesting observation because, I think with the introduction of so much technology, I think there's a new generation of folks who are more comfortable with technology than they are understanding the nuances of the field, right? And I was in that boat. And so I would find myself much more comfortable behind a screen interacting with, BIM 360 plan, trying to look at the last planner methodology of how we're going to get a milestone than actually walking with the foreman and challenging constructability ideas like that. I could never do that. And so I think there is technology has become like a buffer that gives maybe some folks a safe space for them to be on the job, but not necessarily interact with the job in that same way.
No,
Oh, it's
yeah.
it's a whole lot more difficult to challenge somebody face to face than it is
Yeah.
over screen.
Oh yeah, we know that.
There's one more too. There's a little bit the Twitter effect of
Yeah, that's right.
of project interactions.
Steve, I hear you. I agree with what you're saying. I guess what I believe we're in this sort of like, what's it, norming and forming like stage
Mhm.
where we did exactly what you just described for so long, and it worked really
And-
well.
And think about those relationships that you had on site on those days.
They were real. I believe they were. They were very transparent. You get bloodied up together. You're in there solving problems, aligned interests, skin in the game.
I was
You
on
just-
the job site this week, okay? And I'm walking with the electrician because a couple of things weren't quite per the plans, right? And I'm going, okay, you've taken down this far. I said, why don't you just do this instead so we can get closer to the plan and still accomplish what the goal of the plan was?
Sure,
Right.
the intent.
He was just over the moon happy to help.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have to go back and rip everything that he had done
Right.
out
Yeah, make it work.
to make it work, right?
Yeah.
Those interpersonal relations. Now, I guarantee you, if I asked him, I said, hey, man, I need to make one more outlet right over here. You can tap off of this. You think he'd hit me with a change order after I just helped him?
No, because you helped him.
Yes.
Yes.
But here's where I think another perspective is, I think we have these isolated pockets of excellence in the industry, right? Where these kinds of relationships are created and matured, but they're very personnel related, right? Like
Yes.
I would love to work a job where you're the owner, Steve.
Yes.
Like I think that's obvious. But we've all worked in the jobs where the opposite of Steve Little was present, and so each of those interactions creates scar tissue in
It
terms of
does.
how we interact with each other.
Correct.
And so I think, like, I don't think there's, and I don't think you're trying to do this, but like there's not we can't necessarily glorify the past, but I think there is something to take from the past and maybe just your experience in how we create, and I think it's culture, right? It all goes back to culture and leadership.
Yeah, and you're not always going to fix everyone, right?
Yeah.
I can't tell you the number of jobs, even recently, where we've had to bring in supplemental help.
Yeah.
Okay, because they're failing,
Yeah.
right? So my job as an owner's rep is to make sure that these jobs, one, get done for the price that we tell them for, right? Get done on the schedule that we tell them we're going to maintain, and manage conflict on the job. And so when people start failing, you have to. I mean, it's my responsibility to go and try to fix these things.
Yeah. Ensure
Right.
success.
I'll give you a case in point. I'm doing a job in North Carolina where the building was flooded, had 4 feet of water running through the building. Right, old school. And the contractor got started off. He made a mistake. He used the rear elevation to pour his entire concrete floor with. He didn't spot check all the other existing points that he had to meet, right? So he was about 2 inches high in certain areas. So we worked with him so he didn't have to rip it all out and redo it again,
Yeah.
right? And because, you're not going to feel a 16th of an inch per foot.
No.
You're just not, right? So how far do I need to go back into the store and say, okay, we're going to cut out. We caught it before he poured all the way out, but we had to take out a couple bays of concrete
Yeah.
that he'd already done. But by working with him on that, he's not hitting me for some major efforts
Right.
on other things,
Right.
right? It's problem solving together. It's not a one-way street. None of this is a one-way street.
What I'm hearing you describe, though, Steve, is there has to be some level of sophistication in your seat that can allow for that sort of
Yeah.
let's sit down and problem solve together. I've worked with unsophisticated and inexperienced owners, and you can get stuck. You're just like you're like the child in the car on a hot day, and your parents are fighting outside, and you're stuck.
Yeah.
And it's not good because you're cooking.
What an analogy.
But I've been there. But when there is a certain level of sophistication with an individual like yourself on the other side of the table, so many great things can occur. And I'm concerned because Stephen described it. What happens in this next generation as they get into those more senior sort of positions where they're actually more comfortable behind a computer screen or a BIM model than going out there and really, again, walking the job, understanding what's going on, or can picture it in their mind.
I think one of the other things that there's missed opportunities is using your design professionals. Okay, they're actually pretty good at problem solving.
Yeah.
Okay, your architects, your engineers, those guys, making sure that you allow some CA in your budget, right, so that you can
manage the job, deal with problems.
Yeah, I mean, you can do not to exceed, you can do all kinds of things with CA,
Yeah.
right? And one, I think that is a missed opportunity on most jobs, to be honest with you.
Agreed.
Because Steve and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, that and the RFI process, right? what you think about it, if I'm the engineer of record and I've designed a job and I get no feedback, zero feedback. I'm doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Because you think it works. No one tells me it doesn't.
Exactly. Having them make site visits, having them involved in the change order process.
Hmm.
Okay, because where does this normally show up? It shows up in RFIs and it shows up in change orders.
Change orders. That's correct.
Right. So I do a scorecard on my engineers.
Yeah. And is that internal or external?
Internal.
Like you share with them. Do you share with them?
Mm-hmm, sure.
That sort of 360-degree feedback, right? Like, hey, this is what I need you to do better. What can I do better? Like, but what you're describing is a level of sophistication on the owner side that through experience, like, we need CA here. During the course of construction, we have to have these guys involved, right? So I think there's owners that get a set of plans and say, okay, thanks, see you later. Now I'll just go find a builder and go build it, right?
Well, I think that's incumbent upon, because think about that. It also helps protect the builder.
Please.
Okay. AIA has done a pretty good job with their documents of trying to protect the end user,
Yes.
the architect and engineer, and the construction people, right?
Yeah.
And we don't lean on it. We don't use it. But as a builder, why wouldn't you say when you're bidding the job or you're negotiating the job, say, look, make sure you have this in there. Because we know we're going to, there's no such thing as a perfect set of drawings, right? So make sure that we have some level of budget in there for CA, problem solving, whatever you want to call it, right?
Best practices. Hey, we highly, highly, highly recommend this. You need to do this.
I think I feel like I'm so often playing the contrarian perspective here, but I think when we talk about the silos of the industry, everyone has had their own kind of experience depending on the project types they're interacting with, depending on the set of owners and architects and engineers they've interacted with. Later in my career, when I was in the field ops side, I was building a lot of mission critical data centers, and those are really fast and loose, right? Early from a design standpoint. And we had CA budgets, but there really wasn't a willingness to engage in a productive way because, hey, they're focused on the next one. And so I think, though, to your point, there's a value in being able to call people back to the basics, and I think as we try and set that expectation, I think that's a healthy reminder. We've talked about a quarter of maybe more of the listeners are field ops folks, superintendents, PXs, PMs, and so as maybe like the message to them, like what would you say is the message to them as they have a whole variety of baggage as it relates to their owner relationships, their design contacts. I have my brother-in-law as an architect. Shout out to you, Reed. But like outside of like him, like I didn't have a ton of great experiences with the architects and engineers that I work with. Although there's a handful in my experience that were great. Olson Associates being one of them. But what's your message to that next generation who is maybe not had that great experience, and how do they better improve that interaction?
Well, I would ask, why wasn't the experience great to begin with? Right? Did you start off as an adversarial relationship,
Yeah.
or did you approach it differently? Right? This is, if you walk in, if the engineer walks in and the guy goes, "This is the worst set of drawings I've ever seen. What are you going to do to fix this?"
Yeah.
Right?
It's like that steel worker getting in front, punching the concrete.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I think your approach, and I have seen glimmers of some really good younger people that are getting it recently. Okay. One, none of us know it all. No, there's nobody out there, right? None of us are perfect. The only perfect guy that walked the face of the earth, they crucified him.
It's,
Okay.
they said he was wrong.
Yeah. Right. And I think that has all to do with, again, maybe it's just because I was raised in an industry or a company that said, hey, just follow the golden rule.
Right.
Right. So if an engineer walks on site and you've got all this pent up anxiety, whatever, but if you just stop for a second to say, hey, if I'm in his shoes, how would I like to be treated?
Pretty simple.
Right.
Yeah.
Same thing with an owner's rep, same thing with a GC. I mean, I don't ever walk into a new relationship with a GC going, it's adversarial. I want to be a good partner with them, right? I want to be treated well, just like, I would want to be treated. I want to treat them that way, right? I do this with my vendors, my subs, my suppliers, all this type stuff. I don't go out here and bid shop. Not going to do it, right? Those type of things. If I'm always trying to get into somebody's pocket, that's not going to give them a warm and fuzzy working with me. We all have to make money, right? We all have to stay in business, our business included. We talked about at the beginning of the job, right? How am I going to make money, right? How am I going to give a return on the investment to the people that own my company? So if we all start thinking that way and saying, hey, let's, treat each other well,
Yeah.
I think you can have better experiences in the field.
I mean, it sounds so simple, but I think you're right. And one aside to your point, I heard a stat this morning. Content Crew had it, a little video. 70% of trade partners that go out of business were profitable at the time of going out of business, and it was simply a cash flow issue. And so,
Yeah.
like that stat, it should blow our minds. Like, that's bonkers. It's really sad. We should obviously fix it. But it should give us also some empathy towards kind of the other side of the value chain. But Lars, you were about to say something.
Well, I'm still trying to wrap my head around what you just said. 70% of the business are profitable, but it was a cash flow issue, meaning slow to pay. Is that what that is?
Table issue. Yeah, like they couldn't. They had to close their doors.
Well, that gets into transparency and team partners and how and again, just so much stuff. But Steve, I appreciate what you said there. To share a little perspective. I think on a plan and spec job, right? As a builder, you're handed a set of plans, right? It's like, go build it. Well, there's this sort of like, it's ready to be built. It's been designed, right? And again, coming from the public sector, right? And you get out there and you're like, hold on, knee bone's not connecting to the ankle bone, or the shin bone not connecting to the ankle bone. But the problem is you've already mobilized. You're out there. You're burning. And speaking from experience, when the owner doesn't come out there, when the architects don't come out there, and you're like again, you're back in the car. You're just like, I'm losing, right? I'm getting cooked. What we have found is there's a certain amount of predecessor work, investigation that has to occur, whether it's physical, say site renovation, exploratory,
Yep.
or hey, with the plans, go through every sheet, verify every room number, verify it all, and ask 280 RFIs, but do it in such a way that it's before you're ever in the car, before you start to cook. And because then it prevents this desperate anxiety that I believe is, people are doing it for survival out there. That's when the emotions get hot.
Yeah.
That's when it's like a little bit of this.
There's no doubt. I mean,
God, but that has to. I don't feel that the industry does a good job of that upfront, like preparatory work to sort of, hey, can someone check my work, right?
mm-hmm.
Before you go build it, can you check it?
Yep.
And knowing it's probably not going to be perfect, and that's okay. Let's just have a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's another old saying that good fences make good neighbors, right? So if you start thinking of that, like that's what the AIA documents are there
Yeah.
for, right? And but you approach those fences with a little bit of how do I want to be treated, right? So if I was on a job and I'm going to follow your example and I get out there and it's not right, how do you approach it? How do you approach it back with the owner? How do you approach it back with the architect and the engineers on the job? What do you do? How do you go about? I've got a schedule that I've got people mobilizing. I'm going to have general conditions, costs that I got to keep up with. All of these type things, right?
Yeah.
And how do you approach that conversation back with the people that hired you?
Yeah.
If you come at them and go, hey, man, it's not my fault, or you don't take any ownership of it, and then you all of a sudden say, look, man, for every day I'm delayed, it's going to cost you X.
Yeah.
Right?
All true, right? Like
Yeah.
it's going to cost you.
Right.
But how do we get over this, right?
Yeah. So say, hey, man, I need your help here.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Right. Instead of going, hey, man, you made a problem. You've got a problem.
Yeah.
Right. It's working together. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is.
Functional. Was it
And,
Team of
and
Teams? There's books about like what teamwork is, right, for adults.
yeah. I forget the guy's name that wrote a couple of really good books on building teams. But and don't always assume you know everything.
You can't be the smartest person in the room.
I mean, for such a technical industry, we're 33 episodes into this, and every single big problem comes back to leadership. Like how, culture, how you driving the right culture at a project level. And I think that's where, if you look at any of the keynotes and the panels happening in conferences, we keep focusing on the technical. We focus on the different technological kind of advances that can drive the technical. But again, 90% of this comes down to kind of individually how we're approaching people and how we're approaching work.
Yeah. And then also expanding your own knowledge,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's opportunities out there to learn all over the place, right?
If for some of that, I'm sure you're working with younger guys and gals coming up in the industry, and you're seeing some great talent. What are you encouraging them to do? How are you encouraging the plug in to grow things, and knowing it's different than it was 10, 20, 40 years ago?
I mean, you can go online and look for courses, conferences, all kinds of things. Depends on which area you want to focus on, right?
Yeah.
So let's get into the more technical trades real quick. There's been a lot of work in the energy code that has caused a lot of additional cost to the end user and on jobs, right? And there's been all kinds of conferences about what's going on in the energy code. So if you're running a job and you've got people that may not have been exposed to it, who's subject matter expert on site making sure it goes in right?
Yeah.
Okay. I've sat through brick mason conferences. I've sat through energy code conferences. I've sat through some structural steel conferences, learn lunch and learns, all kinds of things, right? Be a sponge.
Yeah.
Look for it. Whatever area that you say, I ran into a problem on a job. Okay, that happened to me, but what am I going to do about it next time? Am I going to take some time and do a little bit of self-education to be prepared for that next time?
So I think maybe along those lines of thinking, if you were to look back at, you in your early 20s or mid 20s, where you're kind of grinding, you're acquiring these skills, with what you know now, what would you take back to that younger Steve and tell them?
one of my mistakes was not having enough work-life balance, right?
What does that mean to you?
Spending more time with my family,
Hmm.
Yeah.
right? Life gets busy. I'm really focused on trying to get ahead in a career so that I could provide better for the family,
Hmm.
right? That happens to us all. We all want a better life for our families. Um, those opportunities I talked about. I mean, I was in night school for about 6 years, right?
That's hard.
Um,
And you had a young family, I'm assuming too.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that I probably should have spaced that out a little bit more.
Just drag the pain out, right?
Yeah, those type of things. But there's uh, that's probably one of the things I would tell myself. I mean, I went after it like gangbusters, right? Went to everything that I could go to,
Were
and
question: were you focused on the destination or focused on the journey?
probably on the journey,
Okay.
because I saw the need in my life to be able to do more things, provide more value, so that I could earn more,
Hmm.
right? Um, the destination, probably not so much, right? Because if I thought about the destination, I would have spaced it out more.
Okay. Okay.
But I'm 20 years old. I got a house. I got 2 kids. You know, working every hour I can get.
Mouths to feed.
Yeah, yeah, and wanting to get ahead and trying to find some fulfillment in your work.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not going to be good at anything unless you're feeling good about what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one of the takeaways for at least a portion of the listener group is going to be like, how do I end up on a Steve Little job? So, but Steve,
There's
appreciate you
plenty of
joining
good people out there in the industry, guys.
us. There
There,
are.
there are,
You're right.
and the opposite is true. We all know that, right?
You're right. And when you find the good ones, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, it is. I've had some really, really fun jobs, some
Yeah.
really technical jobs. Building industrial facilities was a blast.
Yeah.
You're working with big toys,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Complex systems. Pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah,
Specialized
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Those are a lot of fun. But again, if you think about it as the journey, how do I make the journey enjoyable? Right?
Yeah.
Nobody likes an adversarial job. They're not fun. They're stressful. All that.
It makes you be like, why do I do this? I got to go do something else. I'll go sell boat
Exactly.
engines. Get me out of this.
But you got to do a little bit of self-reflection, right?
Yeah.
Did I help cause this adversarial relationship?
Yeah. What could I have done
Yeah.
differently? Yeah.
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 Introspection. 100%.
Spot on. Lars, anything else before we go?
I think you kind of answered some good things there at the end, so I don't want to give you too much of a curveball, but I was going to ask you just like sort of best project. You kind of sort of just mentioned it, some of the industrial stuff, but just like any great memory, any great project, any great occurrence on a project, like just stand out like as like, oh, this was cool, this was fun. Just over the years, touching a lot, doing a lot.
Yeah, I think probably the most fun one was one of the industrial projects, right? Because I'm looking at industrial refrigeration systems where we've got 500 horsepower compressors, floated research, big, huge liquid vessels on the job. We had a blast chiller on that job. It ran at minus 20 with 120-mile-an-hour winds inside of it.
Wow.
So product would
Nasty
come in the
storm.
top, and it would spiral down, and by the time it came out, it was a brick. Um, you know,
Crazy.
all the interconnecting systems with those, all the conveyor systems. I mean, one of the ovens was 300 feet long. That's an oven, one oven. Um, you know, getting all of those control systems working
Oh,
together.
woo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
So we
know,
did it. We did it.
yeah, yeah, and seeing it all come to fruition, and it was always, there's always issues, but they make you
Always
think.
issues. Yeah.
You got to think your way through a lot of these things.
Yeah.
Startup is always, to me, one of the most fun parts. It's stressful, but it's gratifying when it all comes together
Oh
and it's
yeah,
all working,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah. And guys, there are some good GCs out there. I've ran into a few recently that not so much. Like Steve and I talked about, the hit rate was not real good on the last 6 projects,
Yeah,
but there are a couple of shining examples of people that still know how to build and do it well and
yeah.
maintain schedules and all of those type things.
Well, and maybe last like bonus question for the two that were kind of in the shining example camp. What were the main separators? The traditional things of they managed the project controls and you had the visibility you need to be successful, or was it culture? What were the things?
Culture is a lot, project management style. One of them has that young superintendent we talked about earlier. He's a sponge, man. Dude is good. He's learning every day new things. His approach to
Yeah,
problem solving, working with people, learning, asking questions. Um, he's going to be a rock star one day. I'll tell you right now. And the
That's cool.
GC should try to hang on to him.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Um, and the other one had a really good project manager, plenty of problems on the job, um, but his approach to solving the problems was, hey, let's find a way to work this out. And if it's our fault, we'll fix it,
yeah.
right? And if it's something that's wrong in the design documents, we'll work with you to get it
Yeah,
done right.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
Mm.
We'll figure it out.
that to me, that's everything, right?
Yeah,
When the job starts going, well, I'm gonna back up. When the subs are running the job instead of the GC, that's where you get into lots of problems.
agreed.
The GC's got to drive the job. Focus
Yeah.
people in the areas they need to be in. Make sure they're staying on track, that they've got the right amount of manpower. Everybody runs through problems. I talked to a guy yesterday. His main startup guy wound up with cancer. Okay. Guy had to quit. He couldn't work. Okay. So he's now trying to scramble. He was out there. This is one of the owners of the company. He's out there working. He put his tool belt on and went onto the job site to suck it up and get it done.
Yeah.
Those type of people are people I like to work with.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what makes the industry so special is those kinds of stories and those kinds of people, because
Yeah.
people can pack those stories. But I know we're over the time allotted, so thanks again, Steve. Really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys.